Middle of the country, but not middle of the road opinions. It's the podcast dedicated to sports in the air capital of the world.
I'm going to Wichita.
Wichita, Kansas, and beyond. With Tommy, Castor, and Weston Mills, this is Keeper of the Games.
Hey, what's up? Welcome into Keeper of the Games. We are the podcast that focuses on everything in the world of sports in the air capital of Wichita, Kansas, and beyond. Along with Weston Mills, I'm Tommy Castor, back for another episode. Before we dive into everything going on in the world of sports right now, I want to remind you to hit subscribe. That way, anytime we drop a new episode of Keeper of the Games, you'll be notified. You can find us anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. We are on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, brand new on iHeartRadio. So if you listen to podcasts on iHeartRadio, you can find us there. Tune in. We're also on Stitcher, Pocket Cast, and pretty much, like I said, anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. You can also go online, cogpod.weebly.com. And on top of that, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at cogpod, at KOGpod. And you can also watch full episodes on Facebook and YouTube just by searching for Keeper of the Games. So with all of that out of the way, Weston, it's been about a week since we've had a new episode. Did you have a good holiday weekend?
Yeah, absolutely. Got to kind of escape a little bit, get out of town and see some of my buddies. I have a good friend that lives down just outside Freeman, Missouri. So he bought a new smoker, so we had to go try that out, and we smoked a 6-pound pork butt, and it was a really good time. It felt finally like a little bit of a more normal weekend. That was one of the more normal weekends I've had in a while, but had about 8 to 10 friends out there and kind of got to hang out and see everybody kind of for the first time really since we've been in quarantine. But we didn't, felt like we were responsible with it, and it wasn't anything too, over the top or out there. We were being safe.
So you did not go to Lake of the Ozarks then over the weekend?
No, I sure did not. Saw all the photos of that. Looked pretty crazy. As a matter of fact, since I've been back, I had a dentist appointment and a haircut in both places. Wanted to make sure that I had not recently been to Lake of the Ozarks. So glad that I didn't, so I could get all the necessities taken care of.
Now, I would imagine, maybe 5 years ago, you might have been at Lake of the Ozarks.
Probably. I think you're probably spot on, actually. I think 5 years ago I was. That same friend who lives in Freeman, Missouri actually used to live at Lake of the Ozarks, and that's kind of started the tradition of hanging out with him and some of us getting together on Memorial Day, and it was down at Lake of the Ozarks. And I guess I won't speak to the level of fun that we had while we were down there.
Hey, it's totally okay. Yeah, I think I'm at the age now, I don't know, now that you're in your 30s, if it's kind of like, all right, let's have more of a subdued holiday weekend and not go crazy.
Yeah, I'm just at, I just want to be clear, Tommy, I'm just at 30. I guess that considers
you're
me
in your 30s,
but okay, fine.
I mean, you can't argue that. I mean, if you're 30, you're in your 30s. One of the common threads, I'm going to get off topic here. One of the common threads in this podcast is I think you want to paint this picture that there's this huge age disparity between you and I. And really, there's not. I'm 34, you're 30. So it's like, it's not like you're just barely 21. And I'm like in my 40s. I mean, we're not that far apart.
I know, but when, we started this, I guess I've been 30 the whole time we started it, but I'm just into my 30s where I still feel like the guys who are in their mid 30s that sound so old to me, even though I'm right on your coattail.
Hey, 30 is the new 20, I think is what they've said. I don't know if
I'm in for that.
True.
I'm in for at least maybe 30 is the new 25.
Maybe so. I mean, you can tell that to my bladder with the number of times that I get up in the night to go to the bathroom. Why don't we go ahead and dive right in to Keeper of the Games? Actually, before we get started, I want to thank our first sponsor that we have of Keeper of the Games. So our podcast is brought to all of you by our friends at Title Boxing Club here in Wichita. They're in the shops at Tallgrass at 21st and Rock Road. Of course, Title Boxing Club, not unlike a lot of the other businesses out there that had to close in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. They are back open now, and they've got a pretty cool special going on right now. You can get your first month free with the purchase of any gloves. So if you buy any boxing gloves, then you're going to get your first month free at Title Boxing Club to welcome everybody in Wichita back to the gym to work out. And I don't know about you, but 2 months of quarantine, I need to get back into the gym pretty badly. So a pretty good deal there from Title Boxing Club.
Yeah, any type of workout you can get your hands on right now is a good one. It sounds like Title Boxing Club has a pretty good special run for everybody.
Absolutely. So like I said, Keeper of the Games brought to you by Title Boxing Club. The shop's at Tallgrass at 21st and Rock Road. All right. So our top story, our big topic for the day has to do with the Wichita Wind Surge. So we've been sort of on pins and needles wondering what's going to happen with the inaugural season of the Wichita Wind Surge at the brand new Riverfront Stadium. Still no word from minor league baseball about what's going to happen to their 2020 season. But we do know that the parent club of the Wichita Wind Surge, the Miami Marlins, they're going to continue to pay their minor leaguers even with no minor league season in sight, which is definitely good news. There's been a lot of questions about, you've got these guys like Mike Trout, and these major league baseball superstars they've got contracts of millions and millions of dollars. But if you're in the minor leagues, especially if you're in single A or double A, you're not making a whole lot of money. So, definitely good for the Marlins organization to come through and continue to pay their minor league players through basically what would have been the end of the minor league season. My question to you, Weston, is with the Marlins guaranteeing to go ahead and continue to pay their minor league players through the end of the season, do you think they know something we don't? Do you think that they know that there very well could not be a minor league season?
Yeah, so I think the answer lies with what's going on with the MLB, right? So here there had been talk of, hey, it looks like there's going to be baseball. It looks like they've got it figured out. It looks like it's going to be an 81 or 82 game season. They're probably going to play maybe a little bit more regional. There was talk about playing it at Disney, maybe going down to Arizona and playing it. Then we've heard about maybe they're going to play in their stadiums with no fans. And it felt like things were getting imminent. Well, we kind of hit a halt with the MLB, with the owners having discussions with the MLBPA about the money, right? That's what this all boils down to, is the money. The players are saying, I'm not taking a pay cut. The owners want them to go at a prorated salary. And that's kind of where we're butting heads on what's going on. The owners saying, hey, look, we're set to lose all this money. And the players saying, okay, well, you're a billionaire owner and we're not taking a pay cut just so you can, increase your profits. And then here's where we wrap it back in with the minor leagues, right? Because one, we for sure know minor leagues are not playing if the MLB and the MLBPA, or the owners in the MLBPA, can't sort something out, that the minor league seasons won't happen. But two, this kind of feels like, you certainly hope the owners are doing this out of the goodness of their heart. And by that being said, you can kind of also look at some of the, there's a lot of different staff and stadium employees that they continued to pay for a while. And to be honest I'm not sure where we currently stand with most of the teams, if they're currently paying a lot of their stadium employees or smaller organization employees. But this kind of feels like almost like a leverage move from the owners, right? Where it's like, hey, we're going to keep pumping this good PR out there. Look, we're paying our employees, we're paying our minor league players till the end, but our major league guys aren't willing to take a prorated contract or a small pay cut to make this all work. And frankly, whether it's a PR stunt or it is just out of the goodness of their heart, and this is into getting into the discussions, I'm finding myself siding with the owners on this. I kind of feel like these major league guys, like you said, who are, of course you think of the Mike Trouts, but even, I'm not sure what the league minimum is, but it's still significantly higher than what these minor league guys are making. And they can't, we can't find some sort of agreement for you to make less of a contract on a season that you're not playing all the way out. I don't know. To me, whatever happens with the minor leagues is completely tied into what happens with the majors. And it's unfortunate, I feel like, that you have two very wealthy sides, the owners and the players, potentially putting a lot of other people at risk of not making any money this season.
One of the things that I had mentioned to you, I think it was on the last episode, or maybe it was 2 episodes ago, when we were just briefly discussing the Wichita Whiparound about what might happen with the minor league season. I know we've talked about it a few different times. It was my opinion that there just won't be a minor league season, that whatever happens with the major league season, if the owners and the players can come to an agreement, which I think that they will, I think both sides realize how important of a deal it is to get something done to at least play some of the season. But there's going to be a lot of changes. And some of that, in my opinion, is going to be the need for expanded rosters. If they're going to be trying to cram in a lot of games from, the beginning of July potentially to the end of the season, that's going to be a lot of baseball games, and you're going to need more players to fill out your rosters. And that's where teams are going to have to pull from their minor league squads, to make that happen. So I think, knowing that, I think it's more likely there's probably not going to be a major league season. Also, the fact that, I just have a hard time believing that a lot of minor league squads are going to be okay with having games with fans in the stadiums. And without fans in the stadiums, there's really no point in having the games, because that's where the revenue comes from, for all of these teams are the fans in the stadiums and, spending money on the tickets and the concessions and the merch, so it just leads me to believe that, I think that it's inevitable, regardless of what Major League Baseball comes up with the Players Association and the owners. I just have a hard time thinking that there's going to be a minor league season at all. I would just imagine that a lot of these teams are going to say, all right, well, why don't we just, start to prep for 2021, and let our players join the major league squads when they're needed and where they're needed during the season with potentially expanded rosters, and just kind of go from there. I just don't see a scenario where there's going to be minor league baseball happening this summer.
So I guess the way I can kind of envision it, because I kind of think, like you said about Major League Baseball, both sides realize what they're missing out if they don't play this season. There's too much money to be had to just scrap the whole thing if they can figure out a way to do it. I kind of think that's the same way with the minor leagues to a degree, because you're right. There isn't these big TV deals, and if you don't have fans in the stands, it's hard to sell sponsorships in the stadiums. But again, you're talking about, Major League Baseball, and then ultimately the MILB, I think, is the Minor League Baseball Association, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, they're all, these are all pretty incredible, essentially, companies that are being ran, right? So they're going to find a way, I think, to be creative with the given circumstances to do something. And the other thing is, I don't think that, because baseball is different than a lot of other sports, right? Like with football, your off season it's lifting weights, it's getting your agility up, it's maybe getting some timing just on running routes, those kind of things. Basketball is just getting shots up in the gym. Well, with baseball, kind of the way those guys, whether it's right or wrong, the way those guys seem to all train is by playing baseball. So I think a lot of the major league organizations are not going to want to stunt the growth of prospects. And what I think you might see maybe is, especially if the major league teams can go ahead and shift off and play in their home stadiums, obviously with no fans, then maybe what you do is maybe you transition all the minor league players down to Arizona, where you can get those guys running through games. I would think there's got to be some markets to some degree for a small, TV deal if you could do it where they're all in one location. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, it's hard to make the money work when you're just trying to broadcast Wichita Wind Surge TV games. But if you're just running, if you can just be running minor league games on the MLB network, for kind of the off hours of the day anyways, now that creates some value to have those signs up in minor leagues, in the minor league stadiums or down in Arizona, wherever it's being played. I know that's a lot to kind of put together to make that all work, but I kind of go back to exactly what you said. I just feel like there's too much money to be had to not figure something out to work.
I think I don't disagree with you whatsoever. As far as that idea of trying to find, maybe there's a way to bring everybody together to play, maybe there's a TV network that would jump up and say, hey, we'll play some minor league games, on our network. The problem is that's not a priority, and I don't think it's going to be a priority. The priority is getting the major league squads back out on the field. That's those are the big salaries. Those are the teams that are generating the billions and billions of dollars in revenue. It's not the Wichita Wind Surge, unfortunately.
Right.
So that's just not a priority. But one thing I want to go back to is Miami, and obviously for the Wind Surge, they're affiliated with the Miami Marlins. Miami is the only team in Major League Baseball right now that has committed to paying their minor league players for the rest of the minor league season. Now, it's not a ton of money per player, but they're the only team that is committed to paying their players for the remainder of the season. There was a mandate that all teams pay their minor league players a minimum of $400 per week through at least May 31st, which we're coming up to the end of that, the end of the month in a few days. Miami's the only team that has said, we're going to pay for the rest of the season. There have been a couple of other teams that have extended their payments. The Tigers have extended through the end of June. The Philadelphia Phillies will continue payments, but there have been some teams that have said, no, we're not going to. The Oakland Athletics are not going to be paying their minor league players anything more, come Monday. So the Marlins are the only team to commit to that. What I find so striking about that, Weston, is that when you look at the revenue made by team in Major League Baseball in 2019, you know where the Miami Marlins were ranked as far as total team revenue?
32.
Dead last as far as the money that they made. And they're the only team right now in Major League Baseball committed to paying their minor league players through the end of the year. I think that's remarkable.
But were they, and I'm asking, but I think I know the answer, were they also dead last in payroll? I bet.
I don't think they were dead last in payroll, but I don't think that they had a lot in payroll. I mean, I'd have to look that up. But in fact, I can. I mean, I think it's remarkable. In fact, and I have to look this up too. I think that they were the only team, or I think I remember reading like they were maybe the only team that lost money last year.
Right.
But yet they're the only ones that are committed to paying their players. I think that speaks to the ownership. I think it speaks to, the dedication that these guys have in taking care of their players. On top of that, I think the other thing that's really striking to me is the crazy disparity between the top of the top in Major League Baseball as far as salary is concerned in the minor leaguers. I mean, right now we're talking about $400 per week for these minor league players. That's like $1,600 a month, approximately. Yeah. You've got these superstars that are making tens of millions of dollars a year, and it just shows the crazy disparity between the big leagues and the minors. And I don't think it's ever been more apparent than right now.
Well, and so a couple things. First, I'll go back to the Marlins, and I kind of wonder if part of that is with having Derek Jeter in that ownership group. He really brings a player first mentality to that ownership group. I mean, you could just imagine it's probably hard for any of the other owners to really have a player's first mindset when they've never been a player. Like you can even say, the intentions are to be player first, but if you haven't really been in their shoes, you don't know, like Jeter has done, and kind of gives that ability to, really voice hey, we got to take care of these minor league guys, especially if you look down the road, a team that does have a smaller, spending budget every year. They want to take care of their guys because they're going to have to go sign that minor leaguer that they're now paying $400 a week if he makes it to the majors and then, wants a contract, maybe he's going to remember how well the Marlins treated him when he goes to sign that first deal. And then, really, I guess kind of on the other side of things, if you're, if we're talking about, sorry, excuse me. Sorry.
I do want to point out while you're trying to, clear your throat that I was right that in 2020, the Marlins were not dead last in payroll. They were next to last, but they were not dead last. In 2019, they were fourth from last as far as their overall payroll. So yeah, they don't spend a ton of money on players, but their revenues aren't very high either.
Right. Well, so that's exactly, I guess, really what I'm getting at too. So, I mean, I think it's a smart move for the Marlins to really take care of their players. And it's interesting that I saw a tweet. I think it was Darren Vale or maybe John Heyman suggested, and I'm not sure where they're getting these numbers from, but that the Yankees were number one and the Dodgers were number two on highest expected losses this year if the season was to not go on.
Right.
Which,
I think
that payroll.
That might be one of the reasons why the Marlins are willing to pay their minor league players, because considering they don't spend a lot of money on their payroll, they're not projected to lose as much money. I don't know, as teams like the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Dodgers that have these massive payrolls and they have to pay these players. And I know that that's been a point of contention between the Players Association and the owners, as far as you've got these guys that are making a lot of money that they're going to have to take some, potentially some big pay cuts to get back on the field. And, what is that going to look like? And, I think my hope would be that both sides are able to come together and realize, look, like, let's make some concessions. We're all going to lose some money here, but do we want to play baseball this season or don't we? And I think it just comes down to that.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, the thing, it's like the reason why I keep thinking it's going to get done is it's not like one side has more or less to lose. I mean, the players lose 100% of what they were going to make if there's no season, and the owners, I mean, maybe more than 100%. I mean, they can only lose, I guess, 100% of what they stood to make. You know, how far negative can you go? But I mean, both sides have significant amounts to lose, so that's why I just, like you said, hope and think that they'll get something done eventually.
And I think that the baseball side of it is so much more intriguing than any other major sport as far as dealing with what's going to happen as it relates to COVID-19. You know, you've got NFL that had finished their season before this started. They might have to push a few things back. Things might be a little flexible, but at the end of the day, fall's going to come around. Who knows what's going to happen? Same thing with college football. The NBA had played a majority of their season, you know, except for the end of the regular season and the playoffs. So at least they got some of their season in. Same thing with, you know, the NHL. Major League Baseball is the only major sport right now that didn't get a chance to start at all. And there's question of if they'll play the season at all. Right. So, you know, I think that's what makes this so much more intriguing, because both sides have so much more to lose than I think maybe any other major sport. So that's going to be interesting to tell for sure. I also am going to feel absolutely terrible if there's no minor league season and the highly anticipated first season of the Wichita Wind Surge is all for naught. You know, and this brand new baseball stadium just sits empty for the entire summer. That's going to be a big time bummer. But, you know, like I said before, it wouldn't surprise me if that's what actually happens.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like we can go in circles on this, but that aspect of it kind of looks inevitable at this point. You know, I am thinking it's harder and harder to envision any type of minor league season being played in everybody's original stadium.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's going to have to be some sort of offsite or maybe, I mean, I guess you could start doing very regional limited, you know, Omaha's only playing, you know, or the Wind Surge play Omaha. And I know that's actually, you know, you got a AA or, well, that's 2 AAAs. That's
right.
my bad. But anywho, I could see how you could start mixing up just, hey, we're going to have to cross match and do regional things, but it's going to be tough to get any games played in Wichita Stadium.
We'll definitely keep our eyes on it. I think it's, you know, nothing's going to happen until Major League Baseball is able to figure out what's going on with them and the owners and the players. As soon as there's a plan in place for Major League Baseball, I think that's when the other shoe drops and we start to see some decisions made with minor league baseball for sure. Until then, you know, we'll just have to kind of keep our eyes open, but good on the Miami Marlins that they're taking care of their minor league guys, including the Wichita Wind Surge players for the end of the season. We're going to move on now and talk about another sporting event impacted by COVID-19, which has been the main topic of our conversations for the last couple of months on the podcast. But we're talking basketball now, and the basketball tournament, or TBT as it's known, is going to be held this summer. It's a big basketball tournament, a bunch of regional sites, and then one big, final site. That's not going to happen this year. It's going to be one main site, one sole site for TBT, 24 teams over a week and a half in one quarantine location. And it's a lot of fun. That this got a lot of big sponsors on it last year. Some really big name guys played in it, including a team made up of alumni from Wichita State. In fact, their team name, the Aftershocks, obviously. And they're going to be playing in it again this year, as far as everybody knows. However, there was a lot of questions about where is this one quarantined location going to be? If there's not going to be regional sites anymore, where will everyone come to play? And we don't know the answer to that, but we do know that Wichita and Charles Koch Arena is in the running to be the sole location for TBT this summer. What's your opinion on 24 basketball teams? And, I would imagine they're, all the people that surround them, the coaches and the staff and the doctors and all of that, coming into Wichita. I mean, is that a good move, a bad move for the city? Is it something that the city of Wichita should even want to be in the running for? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, as far as having, that number of folks coming in, I mean, as long as it can be, and I think this is going to kind of always be the answer when it comes to to COVID, as long as people can do it in a safe manner, then yeah, it shouldn't matter. I think my concern with something of this level is, these aren't teams that are run on a high caliber level like you have a professional sports organization who's going to have team doctors and all sorts of employees, maybe that are dedicated towards making sure we're following protocols, keeping our people safe. This is kind of more like, really good pickup teams or men's league strolling through. I mean, obviously I know the talent's way higher than that, but I mean, that's ultimately, you just have, 10 guys that are hanging out. They don't have a whole staff of people making sure that their, hotel accommodations are right, that every guy's got a mask if they need a mask. Like, hey, how are we wiping down all our equipment before and after the game? I mean, that's kind of what I think probably makes it a little bit more of a challenge for the basketball tournament when you don't have professional organizations and it's just kind of groups of guys who got together, pulled some money, and are really good basketball players.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point that you just made. One of the things that I didn't realize, so there are 115 teams that have applied to be part of the tournament, and they have not yet announced the 24 teams that will actually be a part of the tournament. So the Wichita State Aftershocks, they applied, but we're not sure if they're actually going to be playing in this year's tournament or not. They did play in last year's, along with, I believe, a team from Kansas, right? Didn't the KU team play in the tournament last year too?
Yeah, last year, because that's when Perry Ellis tore his ACL like 10 minutes into the game. But I have not looked, to be honest, to see if there is a team from Kansas. And I think there was a team from Kansas State last year too as well, which I was trying to find right now. But I will say I was looking at some of the regional sites, and, certainly as long as it can be done safely, you hope that Wichita, gets those kind of things. I think it just speaks well for the city, even if there aren't fans and it's not necessarily bringing in, revenue for the economy per se. I mean, other than maybe any type of sponsorships or those kind of stuff you sell. So you certainly hope that Wichita gets it, but it looks like Las Vegas was one of the regional sites. I feel like Las Vegas is probably going to be very well set up to handle something like this. I mean, there's just so much more infrastructure in place out there already. I mean, number of hotels, those kind of things. And not that you need, an over amount, but I just think of when the basketball tournament is making the decision of where they're going somewhere where they, it's overly qualified to meet their needs, just gives them probably a little bit more peace of mind. I wonder.
I'm going to be actually a little negative about this. I don't really see a point. I don't understand, why does this tournament have to happen at all? I mean, like, we've seen the cancellation of everything. I'm not saying that the health, status, everything that's been going on should dictate the fact that they should cancel. But what I am saying is that it's one thing to talk about Major League Baseball. It's one thing to talk about the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, everything that's going on in the world of major sports. But I think the point that you made proves mine when you said this is like a really good pickup league. It's like a men's league with some, former, big time college guys that are coming back and playing. Do you have to have it? Is it really that big of a deal? Is it really worth bringing in 24 teams from all over the country to one location, potentially Wichita, and putting them up to play at Charles Koch Arena? Does this tournament even have to happen this year? Why not just say, look, like, we're going to go ahead and say, we're going to postpone it. We'll be back in 2021. I feel like that's what a lot of other events at the caliber of TBT are doing. They're saying, we're just going to go ahead and come back in 2021. That leads me to believe that the sponsorship money is hard for TBT to turn down. And I don't know who their sponsors are, but to me, that would be the only reason why they would be adamant about, we have to have this tournament this year. I mean, we have to. I don't see any other reason why.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think probably with the timing of the tournament and where it's still, as of right now, we don't have any professional sports back on. The main three are not back online. I think the TBT is seeing a great opportunity from the television, from a TV deal, selling advertisement for those spots with nothing else competing with it. And really, I guess maybe this is something that you have more knowledge than I do, but I don't know. Certainly the in-stadium sponsorships, depending on where they're located in the stadium, that even could be a prime sell if, they know that they're going to be in the angles of all the TV cameras, like by the score box. And I'm assuming you kind of account for what kind of TV numbers was how you price those kind of things. So I would think there's probably a lot of money to be made, but but even with that said, you're still right. Like this tournament doesn't have, I mean, what are we losing here? Like nothing. Like it's just the money.
It's cool, right? I mean, it's like neat, but it doesn't have to happen. Like some of these major leagues and organizations have to happen. One thing that I do think is interesting from a marketing perspective is TBT is absolutely, positively 100% trying to leverage what's going on with COVID-19 for this tournament. In fact, I don't know if this is their slogan or if it's just something that was on the Twitter graphic that they posted, but the phrase that says a fully quarantined tournament is on that graphic. Like they are celebrating, like, look at us, like we are going to be a fully quarantined tournament, like almost using it like for notoriety, I suppose, which just kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit. So I look at it and I'm like, you don't have to have this. I'm not sure I love the idea of, 24 teams converging, into Wichita from all over the country. I'm just not sure it's a great idea. So if Wichita gets it, all right, cool, I guess. But at the same time, it's completely unnecessary in my opinion.
So I've got two things. One is you're right. I agree with you, but I'll still watch it. And two, you mentioned the aftershocks, but Tommy, you failed to mention the Wichita Wizards are also one of the teams. They are a semi-pro team in Wichita, playing with players that are all born and raised in Wichita, Kansas. And there is a name on here that you may very well remember, Maurice Evans.
I do remember Maurice Evans. Yeah.
He is on this roster. And other than that, and I no disrespect to if we have any Wichita Wizards players listening to our show, which I doubt, none of the other names jump out to me. There's a lot of, there's some local, some Newman, some Friends players. I mean, former Friends player, Bruno Schmidt, former Newman player, Shamar Akwe, if I'm saying that right. And then other than that, I'm not seeing a lot of, there's some Hutch, Emporia State, but all guys that I guess, according to this page, were born and raised in Wichita. So, something interesting to keep an eye on, even though I don't necessarily know any of those guys. Certainly if they were one of the 24, and I certainly would be all more than willing to root for those guys.
Yeah, shout out to Wichita native, Wichita collegiate grad, and 41-year-old Maurice Evans for playing on the Wichita Wizards. I mean, that's I'm only a few years younger than him, and I couldn't run up and down that floor, that's for sure. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see if Wichita is selected as the host location for TBT. And of course, as that news comes in, we'll make sure to pass it along to you. We're going to stay in the basketball world to talk about our next topic, but a little bit more of a sad topic, as former Oklahoma State and Kentucky coach and Kansas native Eddie Sutton passed away just a few days ago at the age of 84. So Eddie Sutton was born in Bucklin, Kansas. He did pass away at his home in South Tulsa, Oklahoma, and was surrounded by family. But less than 2 months ago, Eddie Sutton was informed that he would be a member of the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame in the 2020 class. So he did pass away before his induction, but he did know that he would be a member of the Naismith Hall of Fame. Eddie Sutton was well known as a guy that, really took Oklahoma State to new levels when he was the coach down there, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s. And this is a guy that had a lot of influence on some big name coaches and players who are still active, including Bill Self from the University of Kansas. Definitely a sad passing for Eddie Sutton, but the guy was a hell of a basketball coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember, obviously it would have been, kind of more in the early 2000s, some big time basketball games between Kansas and Eddie Sutton, his Oklahoma State Cowboys. And he put some great product on the floor, and, it's obviously, sad anytime the game loses a legend, but, also a family lost a grandpa, a dad, a brother, an uncle. That's, it's always sad.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he had a ton of success wherever he went. He was the first coach to take 4 different schools to the NCAA tournament. But of course, his legacy will be known in Stillwater for sure. He spent 16 seasons at OSU. They reached 13 NCAA tournaments, 6 Sweet 16s, 3 Elite Eights, and made Final Four appearances in 1995 and 2004. One of the things that I want to point out about not just Eddie Sutton, but think of the total number of legendary college basketball coaches that were born in the state of Kansas. And whether or not they coached at Kansas or Kansas State is irrelevant, but the fact that there are a lot of Kansas natives that ended up, being legendary basketball coaches. Eddie Sutton is one of them, but you've got guys like Dean Smith for sure. I mean, I think of, today we've got Lon Kruger, who's a Kansas native. I mean, there are a lot of guys that were born in Kansas that have went on to have incredible careers.
Yeah. I kind of go back to the episode a few episodes ago when we talked to Matt Beatty. And I'm pretty sure he mentioned, Wichita's got a lot of incredible talent here. From the basketball scene, whether that's coaching or players. I mean, obviously it's a smaller state, but we've put a lot of good product into both the college and the NBA ranks.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, you take a look at, guys, like I mentioned, Dean Smith, Adolph Rupp was born in Halstead, Eddie Sutton born in Bucklin, Ralph Miller was born in Chanute, Gene Keady was born in Larned, Lon Kruger born in Silver Lake, Mark Turgeon was born in Topeka. Mark Fox was born in Garden City. Bill Guthridge was born in Parsons. These are guys that, are not just college basketball coaches. They're some of the greatest college basketball coaches. When you look at Dean Smith, Adolph Rupp, Eddie Sutton, born in the Sunflower State. And then, some current guys too that have, reached really high levels like Mark Turgeon and Lon Kruger, that are Kansas natives. So I know that there's always this conversation about the basketball programs in the state and historically how solid they are. You got to give credit to, even Kansas State too, with a lot of success over the years, and Wichita State, even before their most recent success, had success back in the 80s and, prior to that too. The programs are solid, but the coaches born in this state, I'm not sure there's another state that can boast the top level coaches that have come out of Kansas.
No, when you say Dean Smith, Adolph Rupp, I mean, you can kind of just stop the conversation right there. Yeah. The fact that those are two of the top 4 college basketball coaches of all time. I mean, if you had to put in the top 4, I can't imagine many lists without those 2 in it. That's incredible.
You've got Dean Smith that won 879 games, 2 national titles. Adolph Rupp had 876 wins and 4 national titles. Eddie Sutton won 804 games. Ralph Miller, coached Wichita State, Iowa, and Oregon State. He won 657 games. I mean, a lot of wins on this list too. So I think we could go on and on just about the pedigree, but I noticed that. And I guess I had forgotten that Eddie Sutton was born in Bucklin. I didn't realize he was a Kansas native. And then I saw his obituary and I was like, yeah, I guess he was from Kansas. So that just got me thinking of all of the coaches born in Kansas. So I think it's important to bring that up and talk about that along with Eddie Sutton's legacy.
Absolutely. Shout out to Eddie Sutton and shout out to all the coaches in the state of Kansas.
I also want to mention we're going to stay with college basketball and talk about the Kansas State Wildcats a little bit. And I'm going to let you try to tackle this guy's name. One of the new players for Kansas State has received a waiver from the NCAA. He'll be immediately eligible to play in the 2020 and 2021 season. And so tell me this guy's name because I can't pronounce it.
Kaosi Ezeagu. I think I'm more confident about the first name than I am the last name. But I felt like if I just said it with some confidence, maybe everybody would believe me. So he's and I guess the big news with Kaosi Ezeagu, at least how I'm going to say it. He transferred in from UTEP immediately, and it will immediately become eligible. So that's the big news. He will be able to play for the Wildcats this year. 6'10", 240-pound center. So real big body to come in, and it looks like he played for UTEP last year. Played decent minutes. I missed the average of minutes, but I think he averaged like three points a game and like 2 rebounds a game. So, came in and contributed as a freshman. So you certainly have to be encouraged about what he can build on within the Wildcat program.
So does he look like a guy, from what you can tell, that will come in and immediately contribute to K-State, or is he more of a guy that needs a year under his belt before he can come in?
Without kind of re-looking at the Kansas State roster, you kind of got to think to yourself, if he's, as a freshman, averaging 3 and 2 essentially at UTEP, you're going to move up to the Big 12. The game changes a lot. The Big 12, in my opinion, is one of the, if not the best conference in all of college basketball. So the quality of competition he's going to play against, I certainly expect him to see minutes this year. But I don't think he steps in and starts. But I guess that kind of depends on how that roster shapes up, come September, October, when basketball season really starts rolling around.
The quote from Bruce Weber, head coach of the Wildcats, says, "I'm excited for Kaosi that he was able to gain this waiver. He really made some strides this past semester and brought physicality and competitive spirit to practice. His experience will help our team." So Kaosi Ezeagu, is that right?
Hey, we're consistent, so maybe that we're going to start. Everybody will start calling him that. But that's what I said. Yeah.
So hopefully that's right. Kaosi Ezeagu is immediately eligible for this upcoming season for the Wildcats. Let's get into the Wichita Whiparound right now. It seems like we're talking a lot of basketball tonight on this episode, which is totally okay. We talked baseball before, now we're talking basketball, but we're going to get into prep basketball and talk about the Wichita City League a little bit. Some changes happening in the City League, specifically at Wichita East High School, as they have a brand new head basketball coach. That's Clint Kinnamon, who's coming in to be the new head boys basketball coach and head boys golf coach at East High School for this upcoming season. Now, a little bit about Coach Kinnamon. He comes from East High, from St. John Hudson High School, where he has coached for the last 19 years. He has 29 years of coaching experience, 4 state basketball championships at St. John Hudson, and 15 appearances in the state tournament, including 7 of the last 8 years. His winning percentage in the state tournament is almost 83%, with a 23-6 record. And by the way, he also has 2 state golf championships during his coaching tenure as well. This is a guy that when you look at small high school basketball in the state of Kansas, his name is always at the top. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if he had offers to go to a bigger school multiple times in his 19 years. But it definitely had to be something special, I would think, for him to leave St. John Hudson, where he's had so much success over the last 19 years, to go into the City League, which is a totally different kind of basketball. And hopefully, his whole plan is to, take East to a new level. So I don't know how much you know about this guy, but what are your initial thoughts as somebody going from a small Kansas school to now a City League team for a brand new experience coaching?
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about Coach Kinnamon himself, but I know he did coach Dean Wade out there at St. John. So he has experience coaching guys that want to make that next jump, or maybe I should even not say the guys that want to make the jump to the next level, but guys that have the ability and can jump to that next level and go play D1 basketball. And, Wichita East has been consistently one of the better City League schools, year in and year out. They have a lot of kids that come through that organization. Obviously we're in the era of high school basketball where, collegiate, Sunrise, those are the kind of the schools, the routes that a lot of kids are taking and going kind of that route instead of necessarily playing in the City League. But, I don't think that while it's a different, he's going to have much better athletes at East than he had out in St. John, just by sheer numbers of kids coming through that school. It's still the game of basketball, and I think when you have success at that level for 19 seasons, you're good. That means you're a good coach, and not necessarily that you just have a good system that you're running. A good coach can adapt, and I don't think that there will be any struggles for him adapting to this new style of basketball that the City League plays compared to what his teams were seeing out at St. John's.
I mean, you do say that he's going to have better athletes at East, and I don't disagree with you. But at the same time, there's going to be unique challenges that he's going to face in a program like being in the City League that he wouldn't experience in St. John. Right. Mm-hmm. I think there might be a little bit of I don't want to say a culture shock, but there will definitely be an adjustment for him. You're coaching when you're at St. John. It's a small town in Western Kansas. Mm-hmm. You've got guys like Dean Wade that when he went to Kansas State, he was known for being a grinder. He was known for working extremely hard. I'm not saying that, guys at East don't work extremely hard, but it's a different kind of basketball, right? I mean, like you've got athletes that can play head and shoulders probably above some of the guys at St. John. But I would imagine that at St. John, these guys are also working really, really, really hard. And so I'm trying to find a way to not be, I'm not trying to look down on East at all. I'm not trying to look down on any team in the City League, but I just think that there's going to be some adjustments that Coach Kinnamon is going to have to make for his success in a small Western Kansas town to translate into the City League. It is basketball, but it's a completely different kind of basketball, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely no doubt about that. And the players he has, just kids that live in Wichita are going to be different from the kids you're coaching in St. John's. That's just an absolute truth that you're working with. And that's not to say that you won't have some kids that are hard workers, some kids that aren't, some kids that want to play basketball, some kids that want to play team basketball, like right or wrong. Like you can make any of that work, but it'll just be different for him. And you're definitely right there. I guess I kind of think the mark of a good coach is being able to adapt in different situations. And he has shown success, for a pretty long level at St. John's. And I was trying to look up a little bit about him here, and it looks like I was trying to find it. I'm sure that especially when he had Dean Wade and some of those teams down in St. John, yeah. They're probably putting together MAYB teams and traveling too. And especially when you have someone like Dean Wade and you have teams that have kind of dominated out West like they did, I'm sure you have gone and played in tournaments in Wichita, in tournaments in Kansas City, in tournaments in Oklahoma City. And he's probably been exposed to how to coach against teams that would typically be playing in the City League. Not that just because, hey, he's been to some tournaments with him at MAYB tournaments where similar teams East have played doesn't mean he's going to be successful, but it's exposure over the last 5-6 years, however long they've probably been doing that, for him to kind of be able to have a heads up on what he's getting into.
Yeah, I think he'll do well, and I think that it will. I think whatever adjustments will need to be made, he'll make them. The guy has, he's long tenured. He's coached for 29 years at 3 different schools. He was the Western Kansas Basketball Coach of the Year winner 8 different times. He's a 4-time Kansas Basketball Coaches Association Coach of the Year as well. You win those awards for a reason. The guy can flat out coach. And now he's bringing his pedigree and his success from St. John into the City League for Wichita East, and I'm sure he'll do a great job, so looking forward to that. That's our Wichita Whip Around. Before we wrap up our show, we're going to get into the Finally Funny, and I'm a little bit shocked that this topic that we're going to be talking about, you didn't even watch it. It was one of the most watched events of all time, the match part 2 with Tiger Woods and Peyton Manning taking on Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady this past Sunday on TNT. Millions and millions of people watched it, and you're telling me you did not?
Tommy, I'm probably going to upset you even a little bit more. I'm not even sure what day it was on. Which weekend day was it on?
It was on Sunday.
Okay, well, see, I told you at the beginning of the show, I was with my buddies smoking a 6-pound pork butt, so I was a little occupied with that.
You can't, well, hold on, you can't, I would think the best entertainment while you're smoking a pork butt is to watch these guys playing golf.
True, but again, as I mentioned, I was in Freeman, Missouri, kind of out there in the sticks. My buddy's got a big barn, and his Wi-Fi didn't reach from his house to his barn, so I was kind of stuck. But listen, I think I enjoy following professional golf more than I do the watching of it. So, when PGA is on, I feel like at most times I kind of have a grasp of who's doing what, maybe who won, or who's doing well in the last tournaments, what's upcoming. But I think that is almost more associated with just my love of sports. So when you kind of have an event like this, it just doesn't quite appeal to me because it's kind of a one-off, I guess, and it's not in the grand scheme of. But with that being said, had I just been at home on Sunday, I may very well have watched it. It sounded entertaining, and I'm sure you can probably provide me with some insight of some of the highlights here.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was incredibly entertaining. And I think that one of the things that people were talking about, nonstop was how bad of a golfer Tom Brady is, at least early on. I mean, and I think a lot of it was nerves. It's one thing to go out and play a sport that you've excelled at for 20 years. It's another thing to be, on a national stage and play a sport that you're not known for, and try to not be nervous about that. And there were a lot of shots that he made that I thought, all right, well, this makes me feel a little bit better about my game. Like if I can hit the ball better than Tom Brady, then, maybe I'm going somewhere. But he did struggle really early on until I feel it was like the 7th or 8th hole, and Charles Barkley was in his ear talking trash to Tom about how bad he was playing. Tom turns around, he's about 150 yards out, and it was for birdie. And he made the shot. He holed out from 150 yards right after Charles Barkley was talking trash to him. And then from that point on, he played a lot better at that point. I think it kind of loosened him up some, but ultimately Tiger and Peyton won. Peyton played really well, especially at the beginning. He was making putts. He was hitting some good shots. Obviously all the money went to COVID-19 relief, but it was kind of fun. I mean, the guys were all mic'd up. They could hear the commentators. They were having conversations. They were trash talking. The weather was terrible. Poured down, rain pretty much the entire time. But it looked like they were having a good time, and it was pretty entertaining.
Now, who did we say was going to win? Cause I'm not sure
Yeah, we both said that Phil and Tom would win. Yeah. And not only that, but I actually doubled down on that, and I actually bet money on Phil and Tom. I don't know, maybe 30 minutes before the round started. I had this thought in my mind, and I think it was what we talked about before, that, Tiger has had he's got a fused back, and Peyton has a fused neck. And I just thought Phil and Tom have got to be healthier than Tiger and Peyton are. It's never a good idea to bet against Tiger Woods.
No, that's true.
I put $50 on Phil and Tom, and I lost it all.
Well, and I think in my head, I thought that Tiger and Phil were probably a little bit more on the same playing level, which the guy I work with is a huge Tiger stan, and he would not be letting me have that conversation that Tiger and Phil were anywhere on the same playing level right now. But I feel like I've seen much more of Tom Brady celebrity golf than I have of Peyton. So I kind of thought just seeing him more made me think he was better than Peyton, and that gap disparagement would pay off. But boy, and
what I thought was really interesting was that, Tom Brady, there were multiple times that he kind of acted like he didn't really know the rules. Like he hit it out of bounds one time, and he's like asking the commentators, like he's by himself in his cart, and he's over where like the out of bounds line is. And he goes, "Hey, I don't know if anybody can hear me, but can somebody tell me where I'm supposed to drop this ball?" Like he didn't really know. And I thought, you're on national television right now, and I'm not saying you have to be a scratch golfer, but if you're going to play in a match like this, you should probably know the rules, before you get in and start playing. Now, in his defense, he's focused on football. Peyton's got a lot more time on his hands, I feel like, to be able to go out and play golf right now. But there was a lot of disparity, I felt like, between Peyton and Tom, Peyton being the much better golfer, which was kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, and I guess as soon as you said what you just said, it made me go, what? Why didn't I think of that? You're right. Like, I mean, especially with golf, Peyton could literally, when he signed up to do this match, he could have went out and hit balls or played every day for the next 2 months. And that alone is going to make you it's going to give you a heads up on any other golfer who's maybe got, a couple Saturdays between here and there. I mean, that's just the way golf is. The more opportunity you have to get reps, the better you're going to be. So I guess I should have logged that alone, saying, hey, Peyton can be playing every day. Like, that's a huge advantage.
And there have actually, from what I know, there have been conversations about continuing this and making this a regular deal, maybe once a year or a couple times a year. And in fact, I heard a rumor, and nothing has been signed or official or whatever. And maybe it's just people talking, and maybe it's just a rumor, but I did hear that one of the proposed next matchups would be, Tiger and Phil, obviously, but one of them would get Steph Curry and one of them would get Michael Jordan. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I mean, I think that would be, can you imagine like having you'd have to put Tiger and MJ together on a team, I feel like, and have Phil and Steph play together too. Yep. That would just be incredible. You would have to watch that one, right?
Oh, I would be all in on that one. And I think Steph's a really good golfer, like a really good golfer. And I know Jordan's competitive, but I don't know that he's that. I mean, I think Steph Curry is like a really, I think from what I've seen, is a pretty dang good golfer. So that would actually probably be a really good matchup too. But I would absolutely, just to see Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan on the same team, pick the sport, doesn't matter. Just to see those two as teammates. Done. I'm in for sure. Sign me up.
Yeah. So obviously we made this part of our Finally Funny, and really the funny part about it, in my opinion, the funniest thing from the entire, 6 hours that I watched this was towards the very beginning. And I don't know how much you follow Phil Mickelson. Phil's my guy. Phil's my favorite golfer of all time. He's a lefty. I'm a lefty. I followed his career from day one. The guy is an entertainer, and he's a funny guy, and he likes to talk, and he likes to joke. He likes to trash talk. He likes to have fun. And I think this match, with him being able to be mic'd up, just like the last one, where people can hear what he's saying. Like when he's playing a regular golf tournament, nobody knows what he's saying on the course. You can't hear him, but he's got a microphone on, and he's giving his opinion on things. And at one point he's on the tee box, and he's giving a lecture. Like he's basically just talking about the strategy and hitting his ball somewhere and what he wants to do and what he and Tom need to do on the hole. I mean, he's playing to the crowd basically and just talking nonstop. Tiger is standing right off the tee box, and there's a camera right by Tiger. Tiger turns his head, looks in the camera, and he goes, "Now you all know what I've been dealing with all these years." And it was so funny. And I could just picture all of those tournaments where Phil is talking Tiger's ear off, and Tiger's like, "I don't want to hear it right now. Like, I'm trying to focus on golf." And that I think is just that's the epitome of their relationship with one another. I mean, they're rivals, and they always have been. And they're completely different personalities, but they complement each other so well.
Yeah, no, and that is something that, like I said, I've followed golf, so I definitely knew of that aspect, and it sounds like it had really good ratings, and everybody was tuning in and talking about it. So, it sounds like something that they could go ahead and do. Would it be part 2 or part 3?
Part 3.
Part 3.
Part 3.
Right.
We ought to try to lobby them to see if Tiger would take one of us and Phil would take the other one, and we could do our own match with them. Cool. I'm not sure if that would ever happen, but that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably have to take Tiger, but we could go from there.
Hey, I'll take Phil. I've got no problem with that at all.
Fair enough.
That's our Finally Funny for today, and that's going to wrap things up for Keeper of the Games this edition of the show. Hey, don't forget to subscribe so you're notified whenever we drop a new episode, pretty much anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcasts on all the major platforms out there, like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, brand new on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Pocket Cast, and Stitcher as well. You can go to our website, kogpod.weebly.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at KOGpod, and you can watch full video episodes on Facebook and YouTube by searching for Keeper of the Games. Again, special thanks to our sponsor, Title Boxing Club at 21st and Rock Road in the shops at Tallgrass. Don't forget your first month free with the purchase of any gloves. So thanks to them for sponsoring CogPod. And don't forget, you can also follow us individually as well. Weston, what's your Twitter handle?
At WMills94.
You can follow me at Tweets from Tommy as well. So until next time, for Weston Mills, I'm Tommy Castor. You've been listening to Keeper of the Games.
Take care, you guys.
You've been listening to Keeper of the Games with Tommy Castor and Weston Mills. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and listen on all major podcast platforms like iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and more. Find the podcast and videos on Facebook and YouTube at Keeper of the Games, and follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at COGPod. That's KOG Pod.